helping people cope with loss through humor. What? Welcome to the Joyous Expansion Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Dupree, scouring the globe to bring you stories of courage, passion, and resilience. If I could sum up this podcast into one word, I would use empathy. Now let's get inspired. Welcome to the Joyous Expansion Podcast. Once again, I am your host, Brett Dupree. I have a wonderful interview for you today where I talk to somebody who brings joy to the world by helping people cope with going blind and going deaf. This interview that you're going to listen to is kind of heavy. There are some trigger warnings, especially if miscarriages. So I just want to warn you about that right away. Well, anyway, this is the part of my podcast where I am vulnerable and talk about myself, because if I cannot be vulnerable with my audience, how can I expect my guests to be vulnerable with me? This week was a good week in many ways. One thing that was super fun was on Monday, I saw Deepak Chopra live. It was pretty fun. It talked about his new book, Meta Human. I'll talk about that. I should give it a read. It was a birthday present by one of my Lightworker Toastmasters friends, Donna Stoltz, who you have heard me mention a few times on this podcast. She's the one who dotted the I's and crossed the T's and made sure that every little thing was done correctly so that this club that we created together would be awesome. And I always will be grateful for her for that. And she was nice enough to take me somewhere for a late birthday present, which was super kind. So Deepak Chopra was up there and talking about the nature of what it means to be human, kind of the observer. We did this meditation where, you look at the observer, then you look at the person observing that and something like that. It was a nice meditation, and it was a good group meditation. I have been a long time since I've been in a really fun group meditation. Mostly because I saw Deepak Chopra and I only saw a few people I knew. Generally speaking, historically, I would have seen at least 5 to 10 people I know at that kind of event in Seattle, because the metaphysical spiritual community isn't that small. And I used to go to a lot of things. I mean, I remember in 2006, I did this thing where I did 3 classes a month at least. And at least one of those were going to some sort of positivity course of some kind. I used to go to EFT circles, intention circles, anything that seemed interesting, Seattle Power Group, the Tony Robbins group, channel groups, you name it. I used to go, and I enjoyed going to those. And it kind of went by the wayside. Number one, of course, I replaced a lot of that with Toastmasters, which is an organization I do enjoy, and it's helped me a lot. But still, there is that part where I am in kind of a conundrum, where I remember the day I was walking, and I thought to myself, I don't need to do this anymore, that I reached this level of happiness. And to be honest, I don't know if I ever gone beyond that, to be honest. That one moment felt like I was growing, I was getting bigger. And that was just like 10 years ago. And I feel like I'm in this perpetual stuckness, really, where I don't feel like I'm growing like I was before. And part of it is just, maybe it is breaking down the walls as I talk about no longer believing in the law of attraction. I don't believe in karma. I mean, I believe in cause and effect. I was talking to this about my dad, I believe. Did I tell you guys about this? I don't remember. But basically, I don't believe in this mystical karma as if there is something on high doling out punishment to people who deserve punishment and good to people who do good. I tend to think that is something that kind of keeps us stuck in a way and allows us to, some of it's good. It allows us to go on through our day when somebody messes with us and we think to ourselves, karma will get them, so you can let it go. But at the same time, if you think karma can get them and you could do something, but then you turn over the karma, then you're stopping yourself from doing that action, because I just don't believe in this mystical force of karma. I listened to this podcast called Behind the Bastards, and they just talked about, we learned about Edward Bernays, who is the father of lies. He's someone who helped make women smoke by making it cool. He's somebody who pretty much how Nazi propaganda, he pretty much put that into the mainstream of how Nazis were able to manipulate people. He also helped ruin the Guatemalan government and put them in a massive civil war. I mean, he has millions of deaths on the actions that he taken, and he died at the age of 106, a millionaire. His children didn't really like him, thought he was kind of a bastard. But at the same time, where was the karmic debt in there? Oh, I have to believe in his next life something has had to happen to him. Yeah, I'm listening to this thing by David Wilcox right now called The Synchronicity Key. And he's talking about karma. He's talking about in the sense of past lives and how something you do in a past life, and if you heal that past life now, that would cause you to somehow heal something going on. Like if you're born blind, and that's because back in the day you were blinded, or you blinded people, and your karmic debt was you blinded people for a living, and that's why you're born blind this life. And once you heal your karmic debt in the past, then you can see. Or you're born racist, and that was only because in your past life you're killed by a bunch of black people, and once you heal your past life, you're not racist anymore, or something like that. And honestly, I don't believe in that. And sitting here listening to Deepak Chopra talk was interesting. And when you don't believe in much anymore. But one thing I do believe in is motivation. One thing I do believe is inspiration. I do believe those two things are important. I do believe in consistency is the key to success, and having a happy and joy-filled life is the way to help, or is at least a way to help keep you going, and something that is needed in this world. And that's why I do this podcast. This podcast right now is helping me keep going. Every time I listen to somebody talk, I am inspired. And I'm especially inspired by Amy Bovaird. At the age of 28, Amy was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa and declared legally blind. RB is a hereditary and degenerative eye disease that causes blindness. There is no cure to date. Today, she has no peripheral vision. She also has hearing loss. Through that, she has taught other people how to deal with loss through humor. She has books such as Mobility Matters, Stepping Out into Faith, Cane Confessions, The Lighter Side of Mobility, and her memoir and devotional Seeking Solace, Finding Joy After Loss. Now here is my interview with Amy Bovaird. Hello, Amy, and welcome to my podcast.
Hi, it's good to be here.
It's good to have you. How are you doing this fine day?
Oh, yeah, the weather's great. I've already had a visit from the plumber, so yeah, I think it's headed in a good direction.
That's good to hear. So you help people thriving with vision and hearing loss?
That's correct.
Can you tell me how you got started on that?
Yeah, in 1989, I was diagnosed with an incurable hereditary vision condition. And although no one in my family that we know of has it, we don't know where I inherited it from. But what happens is that it starts out with night vision and it narrows to tunnel vision. And then your sight disappears completely or almost completely. For some people, it's a very rapid process. For me, it's been very slow. I was diagnosed with this in 1989, and I didn't know what to expect. When nothing major happened except for having difficulty to see at night, then I sort of went into this denial period where, I don't really have the terrible part of this disease. I'm just clumsy. I began to convince myself that I was clumsy. Basically, this whole thing started I didn't start advocating and helping people until I had to seek help for my vision. And then the hearing loss came along with it, and it didn't appear until later, 2006. Then I started noticing I had difficulty hearing, and it progressed quite rapidly. So that's what I'm coping with now. So I am helping other people face their fears and be proactive about coping with it.
So what was it like accepting your condition?
It was really difficult. I was headed to Indonesia at the time. I was an ESL teacher, English as a second language, and I was on my way to Indonesia. So I had about a 2-week period to figure out what I was going to do. And I spent most of that time in my room trying to figure it out. Am I going to wake up and just be blind? Or because it's different for everyone, that the doctors had told me. In the end, after 2 weeks, I finally decided that, yes, I was going to continue with my job in Indonesia, which was, my mother couldn't believe that. She was like, oh no. And it was a good decision for me. It's kind of a decision you make and make and make and make and make. Like you don't decide, you don't accept it at once. You just accept it in little tiny steps. At least that's how it happened for me.
That's a very good point. A lot of people especially like to think there's just one moment where everything changes, and life is really just a series of steps, a series of changes.
Yeah, and it's the same way every day with my hearing loss. I have to say, I'm going to see what happens today. That's really even more difficult for me than vision loss, because hearing, you can't fake it. You can't, like, someone says, oh, look at that. Isn't that amazing? I said, oh yeah. You don't really have to. Sometimes I faked it, but with hearing, you either hear or you don't hear. It's really challenging for me to find solutions.
When you were going through your vision and hearing loss, did you ever go through like bouts of depression?
I did. I did go through periods where I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Especially in 2008, when I had to seek help. That's when it really came to a head that year. And I had to say, what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to hide from this, or am I going to confront it? And I think after a period of, it was about a year on and off. I started out that year with 2 new jobs and this heavy realization that I'm losing my hearing quite rapidly. And I was a foreign language. At that time, I was teaching Spanish at a high school. And I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to be able to teach these students? But I empowered myself by going to the Bureau of Blindness and Visual Services. They made it possible for me to test my hearing. They provided hearing aids. And it seems like every time that I was feeling depressed, something positive would happen to lift me out of it. So by the end of that year, I was in a much better place.
What were the positive things that lifted you out of it?
Well, one started out negative. I met this mobility specialist, and he's like, Amy, why don't you just tell people that you're blind? I'm like, I'm not blind. I'm just clumsy. I was still falling back on that idea that I really didn't have this thing, even though I knew I did. He wouldn't let me hide behind that excuse. He called me a couple times and he said, let's just try. I got the canes. Let's just try them out. And it was little by little that when he wouldn't give up on me. And then I went on my first blind walk, mobility walk, where I wore sleep shades. And that was so amazing. Like we went on the street where I lived. We walked for about a mile, and my mobility trainer seemed like he was the sighted one. And he was like, Amy, you're across the street. Come back slowly. Like he guided me. And then when I finally took off my sleep shades, I was right in front of my house. It was unbelievable. And that was one of the first moments when I thought, I can handle this. I can do it. And each time we did about a mobility training once a month. By the end of the year, I was like, this is kind of adventuresome. I did this. I crossed the street. I found my way around, like goals for each thing. And it kind of became an adventure for me. Every time I accomplished something, it gave me more power. Like I felt like I was more capable. Although when I was in the situation going through the mobility training that day, I was afraid. It was afterwards when I reflected on it that I felt more empowered.
That's so cool. One thing that I noticed throughout my podcast is that a lot of people have turning points when they seek and accept help in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also I know that's big for me because I'm one of those people who have like almost anxiety when asking for help. So it's so cool to see that being something that, is such a positive change.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the thing. Asking for and accepting for help is something a lot of people with vision loss have difficulty with too, especially as far as transportation, getting to a place. It's really, really hard. It's so hard on your pride. It's so hard on, you have to have that dependence. But then when it's like a give-take thing, when I can give help and then I can ask for help, it's a little bit easier for me to ask for help, even if it's not to the same person. It's just kind of finding a balance with asking and receiving help that you kind of move forward.
So is it working with your mobility coach what inspired you to want to help others with their mobility?
Absolutely. It was the empowerment that I received and the fact that I can do this. And when I first looked at the cane, it was taking away all of my independence. It was, people are going to know that I'm blind. They're going to think I can't do things. This is the fear that a lot of people have when they have to reach for a cane. And actually, the truth is that it gives you independence. It provides it because instead of running into something or tripping over something, you have that cane help you find it. You've averted some kind of disaster or embarrassing situation. And also, people understand more if you run into something when they see your cane, they know why. And or if you cut in line, like when you don't know that there's a big line somewhere in the grocery store, it explains it for you. I found that I was much more empowered with my cane, and it was a huge lesson to learn that it doesn't take away your independence, but it helps you retain and move forward with it.
So I see in your book that you write about the lighter side. What made you decide to confront this with humor?
Because I want to reach out to other people. First of all, if you don't have a sense of humor, you just kind of wallow in. It's easier to wallow in self-pity. But if you have a sense of humor, then one, you feel better about a situation. Two, you learn that life isn't so serious. Three, other people are put at ease by it. And I've learned that I can actually teach people things through that and make a bridge to, for example, sighted readers or even other vision impaired readers. They think that it's not a life sentence to lose your vision. If you look at it with the right attitude. It's not something that a lot of other people write about it. When I looked to see what there is to guide me through this process of accepting myself, I didn't see a lot of lighthearted information. I saw some how-tos. I didn't want that. I wanted to feel better about myself. So I just said, how did I handle this? How did I handle this? And I saw that I had a sense of humor. So I highlighted it when I was going through this.
And I'm sure having the sense of humor helped you push through all the struggles that happens.
Even running into things, my colleagues at work, this is before I told anybody. And one time I ran into somebody with some coffee and it was just kind of this big mess. And they said, oh, that's just Amy. She's so ditzy. But later when I wrote about this situation, people that I used to work with who bought my book, they understood it completely. It made me feel so much better. Yeah. It also makes the people that read this feel so much better because it's happened to them. And I'm sure they've been mortified or they've just gone through the whole embarrassment. How do I handle this kind of thing? It's another step up.
So what made you want to become a speaker?
First of all, I was a teacher, so I already had skills in speaking. Second of all, I knew I had to sell my books, but I learned after I started speaking, my initial goal was to sell my books, to have a forum. But then I learned that I loved communicating about how to live positively with this, how to get through small hurdles and big hurdles. People started to respond to me, my audience. I found out that I liked being that bridge. It gave me more of a mission than just to sell books. It was something I wanted to do for myself. And then I started looking at other people, like other disabilities. It just led to a whole new reason, a purpose.
It's a lot of excitement right there.
Yeah. And connection. So I can connect with other people who struggle with the same thing. I don't know what to do sometimes with my hearing. I get so frustrated. And I found out how other people handle it and how for example, my mother was hard of hearing from age-related hearing loss. We would talk back and forth and we would each misunderstand each other. And I started writing down the conversations and then it started seeming more humorous. And then we would laugh about it more because we were both like, what did you say? We were just speaking at cross purposes. Neither one of us was right. We were completely hearing wrong. And the other thing I learned so much about, you don't have to scream at somebody to get them to hear you. You just have to speak more clearly. So this connection has led me to solutions and to a more positive outlook of coping.
So it really sounds like your ability to help others has really done a great job of helping yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And, sometimes I work with senior citizens, and because of my situation with my mom, I can reach out, I can give them tools, I can talk about both vision and hearing, what to do in certain situations. I give them tips and we can problem solve together. So that gives me like a good audience, a good, connection, so that I'm encouraging other people.
So your other book, Finding Joy After Loss, how do you find joy after loss?
For me, it was through faith. I don't know. It's for everyone. It could be different, but for me, it was through faith. This book came about because I lost my mother unexpectedly. It's in my house. My mother, brother, and I lived together, and each one of us had our own problems, but we worked together well. When my mother suffered a stroke, a massive stroke, and she never recovered. I made the meals. We were really close. So that was when I went through a really big period of depression, maybe, I don't know, 6 months, something. And I started to look to see how God helped me in the past deal with loss. When I lived in the United Arab Emirates, I was teaching at a women's college. I was married to an Egyptian at that time. We got pregnant with twins at the end of their first year, which was amazing. I was so excited. I never knew I wanted to be its mother. And it was just the most exciting period of my life. And then 5 months into it, I found out that I lost one of the twins. And within, I don't know, maybe a week, maybe it was just the weekend. On Monday, I went to the doctors to try to get a permission slip to have the baby in the United States, and the second twin. And we found out that I had a toxemia or preeclampsia. Within 2 days, I was hospitalized. It went from moderate to severe, and I was hospitalized for six weeks, and I lost the second twin. So that's the first way I found out that as I was going through all of these emergencies, and even when I found out that I lost the second twin, I was by myself. My husband wasn't there. He was back. He's a teacher as well, so he was back teaching. And when they told me that I lost the second twin, every step along this way in my 6-week stay at the hospital, I had emergencies. And it seemed like I was always by myself. But God somehow provided someone to meet that need, or something or someone. And that was the first way that I found that God met my needs. The second thing was after we had another miscarriage, my husband and I. And so then my husband didn't want to try anymore. And it just, our situation just disintegrated, and he decided he wanted a divorce. We were still living in the United Arab Emirates. We worked in a small expatriate community where everybody knew everybody. And I had to go through this period of time, that was quite difficult for both of us as we adjusted to our new relationship. And I tried to make our way back to friendship. The third thing that happened was a few years later, my father, my family's quite close, and my father was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I was still in the Emirates. I was planning to move back home at the end of that semester, and I had to leave early. And we didn't know if I was going to make it or not, but I did make it. In that situation, God met my needs. It turned out that when I was writing, I started to write this book to actually comfort myself. And then it was a devotional that I was writing, 15 devotionals on the twins, 15 on my divorce, and then 15 devotionals coping with the loss of my father. These are the things that helped me halfway through writing this book. I was sort of being lifted from the depression of losing my mother. So I started to think, if I can start to feel better, then I think other people who are coping with loss can start to feel better. And that's how that came about.
Almost reminds me a little bit of the story of Job. You went through a lot.
Yeah. And I did. But you know what? It's like each challenge, there was just something that God did that helped me, that said, I can make it through this day. It wasn't make it through, I don't even know how I'm going to make it through the whole situation. It was just day by day. Even like when I found out I lost the second twin, which I could not believe. It was so dramatic that they made this half circle around my bed, and they told me, and then one by one they left me by myself. It was like this, I don't know how to describe it. And my husband was 1.5 hours away. I had to call him. We had an argument earlier that day, and over the phone, and I had to tell him that we had lost the baby. And he came, and the paperwork was so much, and he left, and he couldn't stay with me. It was just like I was praying, and God gave me the names of our babies, and just by chance. Like one of them was Celesta, after my mother, and the other one was Noor, which my husband had named our second baby, and together the name was Heavenly Light. It was like God said, "Don't worry, the babies are with me. You'll be okay." And those kinds of things are what kept me going in the really scary, sad, overwhelming moments.
When it comes to your travels and such, what has the reaction been like through crowds and things like that?
so positive. I receive letters, I receive phone calls. They're just so welcoming to my talk. Yeah, they're so encouraged. It's really uplifting both ways. Yeah.
Do you have any favorites that you can share with us? Favorite responses?
I don't really. I told a story to a church group about ants. When I was overseas, I was attacked by these ants. And then when I was in Kenya, it was actually when I was in Kenya, and how these ants that attacked me, I was in bed and I don't know, they had an infestation, I guess, or something. How I was so horrified by this when I was kicking off all these ants, and I told the story, and I told how they were blessings in disguise, because I realized by the end, when I was kicking them off and they were all over me, that I could do it. I was empowered, and it was how my life was, that sometimes things come all at once and attack you, but in the end, you are still in control of what you can do. And this kind of helped them see that the things in their lives that seem overwhelming at the time, and it was only 2 minutes that these ants attacked me, there will be a time when you can come back, be back in control. Oh, I don't know. There were so many little stories like that they enjoy, and that surprised me when I think back on what happened and how I was able to get through it. Climbing the Mount Fuji is one of their favorite stories, my favorite stories, and they seem to enjoy it too. When all these things happened, and by the end I was reflecting on it and how, these older people were going up so fast, and I had a mining light, and it took me, I don't know, it was a night climb, and it took me 11 hours to get through, and I got lost, and all of these different things, how God spoke through all the humorous misadventures.
That's so cool. So we are coming to the end of our time together, and one thing I like to ask my interviewees is for a 1 minute of motivation. You can imagine this as if you have a time machine and you are traveling back in time to your 8-year-old self, and you need to convey the information for you to live the happy and joy-filled life. But unfortunately, you have a minute until you are plopped back to the present day. Or you can think of it as condensing your entire life's purpose into a minute.
You love these tropical climates. I'm going to give you a special kind of suntan lotion. It's called Apply G. You're going to use it so that you don't get burnt. And with all of the sun there is, all the problems, this is what you're going to do. The first ingredient in this suntan lotion is your attitude. You're going to have to develop a strong, positive attitude. You're going to have to lean on other people. You're going to have to start every day right with a positive attitude. The second ingredient in this suntan lotion is patience. Your life changes. You're going to have to learn to do things differently. So you're going to have to be patient with yourself, not only because of the problems that you're going to face, but also because you're in a different culture, you're in different cultures. You're going to have to learn things are not going to always go your way. You're going to have to adjust and adapt to different cultures and different ways of thinking. So you're going to have to develop patience. Third thing, ingredient that this lotion has is the power to let yourself accept you as you are. It's going to give you the power to protect yourself. So you have the choice your circumstances don't rule you. You have the choice how you're going to respond. When you put this on, this layer is going to help you protect yourself by making, again, the right choices, by choosing to respond in the right way. The fourth ingredient is laughter. Keep your sense of humor. Everything's going to go wrong sometimes. You're going to wake up, you don't want to do anything. But if you keep your sense of humor, the others around you will keep their senses of humor. The next ingredient is yes. Yes, you can change who you are. You can change what you do, where you live, you can change any activity to make yourself feel more positive. Take a trip, visit a friend, think of other people, get away from yourself, change your activity. All of this, when you put it on, it's going to give you gratitude. Apply gratitude. Gratitude is the most important element that's going to make you get through the tough times. So this sunscreen is called Apply G. That's what I would tell my younger self.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. I really appreciated your story on how you have allowed first went through denial of your issues of seeing loss and hearing loss and was able to push through that and not only accept your condition, but also persevere through it and help other people through the use of inspiration and humor. And so I thank you for your contribution to my podcast, and I thank you for your contribution to this planet.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
May your day be special. And there you have it, folks. That is my interview with Amy Bovaird. Wasn't that a little heavy, especially towards the end? She actually sent me an email almost apologizing about talking about her miscarriages because she didn't expect to go there. I wouldn't say apologizing, but she was wondering if that was okay to talk about something so heavy. But in my opinion, to talk to someone who's been through what she has been through and has still come out of it with humor and positivity, I think is an inspiring thing. I mean, in my life, I love sight, I love hearing. Both of those are two of my favorite of the senses. All of them are my favorites. They're amazing. Touch is awesome. Anyway, and then listening to her losing both her twins, that was rough. I just remember when I was editing, I recorded this interview, I believe in August sometime. So it's been a while since I heard it. And when I got to that part, I was like, whoa, this is heavy. This is probably going to trigger some people, which is why I mentioned a trigger warning before that. But to be able to go through all that and recognize the fact, patience and positive attitude and gratitude, to come out of there with gratitude, because one of the most bright things I ever heard is the mantra, this too shall pass, because that's what time does. It keeps on going, and you can't just wallow in the past. You have to keep pushing on, and listening to someone like Amy, who honestly, her voice is adorable, who has been through so much, and is still going forward. And still pushing on. And not only pushing on with joy, love, and gratitude, and faith in her God. It just makes me think, yeah, I can get through this pain in my leg that I've had for a month that's finally seeming to heal. So if you're looking for more information about Amy, if you want to check out her or any of her books, you should go to amybovaird.com. amybovaird.com. You can learn about her books, her speaking, her insights, contact her, and check her out. And that, my friends, is episode 46. Wow, 46 episodes. How cool is that? I'm almost to my 50th celebration. Hooray. Well, it won't be much of a celebration, but the guest I wanted when I started this podcast at 50, and he said yes, and he's on it. Interview's ready, and just give him a go. Of course, there's 3 more to do after this, before that one, but cool. Super happy about that. Super happy about 46. Super happy about getting this one done. So if you want to email me at BRE2Ts, at joyousexpansion.com. You can check out joyousexpansion.com. I'm on Instagram at joyousexpansion, Twitter at joyousexpansion, and at Facebook at Increase Your Joy. You can buy my book at my website. If you want more podcasts, go to pod.joyousexpansion.com, or if you're listening to this on any app, leave a like, star rating, review, help me be seen by other people. That would be super cool of you. Once again, I'm Brett Dupree, your champion of authentic joy, Joyous Expansion Life Coach, catalyst of transformation of the Church of Awesome, reminding you once again to be love, to be joy, to be awesome. Now play my jingle.
JoyousExpansion.com. JoyousExpansion.com. Come and say hello to Brett Dupree. He is an inspirational life coach. Good for you and good for me. He turned my life from grey to blue. I'm sure he'll do the same for you. Get in touch and you'll see your life will change dramatically. JoyousExpansion.com. JoyousExpansion.com. Yeah.